And I really am deeply excited about this congressional race. Our country is in a lot of trouble, and whether it's just the centralization of power. I've been talking to people, we've been writing some of the issues, and I really think that there's a fresh breath of air going through this country of pushing things back to the states and 10th Amendment and making sure that, it sounds silly, but, or it sounds very logical. Government doesn't have the answers. And the more we can push out of Washington, and so that's one of the main things that I'm going there to do, is just get the stuff out. I mean, whether it's education, I can't tell you, in the last 2 weeks, one on the nationalized testing that I've been fighting, and the other on statewide teacher evaluations that will be tied to the national testing that will make it so that they're forced to teach to the test for the national curriculum. Both times, the biggest argument was, well, if we don't, Washington is going to take our money away, or Washington is going to penalize us. It's not what's best for the kids, it's Washington is doing this. And whether it's Medicaid, there's proposals for have states try things and do them better, deliver them better. No, Washington says you can't. Whether it's, there's just, it's time and time again, we run into areas where the problem is Washington. So I'm going to the belly of the beast. I'm going to go there to really push things back, to bring some common sense. And I just wanted to give you, articulate a few things. It's a little awkward because you've got to talk about yourself when you're running. But what I want to let you know that I'm a person of action. And I've got some examples, like when Obamacare was being discussed. I mean, I didn't sit there, my opponent did, but I didn't sit there and just kind of watch. I engaged. I was the first one to hold a town hall. I don't know if any of you were here. We had 600 people at the Rochester Town Hall, Rochester High School. I had a seat for Gary Peters with the 2,000 pages. He didn't show up, but 3 doctors did, and they talked, one from Canada, and they talked about socialized medicine and what was coming. I then raised some money and found and got my other legislators to do it in Troy and several other places around the state to try and make sure that we put pressure on these guys that were thinking about voting for it. Then after the vote, I made sure that we launched a campaign on the petition drive to try and repeal or let us have some ability to opt out. We fell short, but we got 200,000 signatures, and I just wasn't going to sit on the sideline. I wanted to engage and get out there. On Common Core, a lot of you know that the nationalization of our education system, back last year, early last year, the governor was with Arnie Duncan in Detroit, talking about, on stage, talking about how great Common Core was and how much he loved it. Well, 6 weeks later, he was signing a bill, the budget, that defunded it. And that doesn't happen except I was able to cobble together 7 or 8 legislators, and we said we're not going to sign on this budget unless we defund Common Core. And we stood firm, and there was a ton of pressure. People were getting called into the governor's office. People were getting called by the big donors and folks in the that give. But we were able to stop it. We had a lot of debate. We're moving forward. Unfortunately, we lost that fight, but we just got to fight. And I'm somebody who, when we see the issues like what we're talking about in education, Obamacare, I don't sit around, and I'm not going to do that in Congress. Transparency is another issue. We got there in Lansing, and I had always fought for transparency in Auburn Hills. I don't know, some of my friends. Yeah, David, we were the first ones to, I made sure that we videotaped our council meetings. I wanted to make sure that we at least did that. But I was always pushing for transparency. The Dems were in charge. I couldn't do a whole lot, but Justin and I decided we were going to put our offices, our staff's names and salaries online, our office expenditures, and our benefit package. So we were the first in the state history of legislators to put those things online. And then when the Republicans came into control, we're doing that now in the House. Everybody is. They came to me and said, how do you do this? And what exactly did you do? So I was showing them on transparency. The Senate, they could have followed along, and my opponent was the head of the Senate. He could have certainly said, well, let's make sure we're doing transparency around, but they didn't. The Senate still isn't doing that. And I just received, and I'm always pushing for, whether it's Detroit, the pension system. I had a bill to make sure they're flying all around to Tahiti and everything, these pension boards. Meanwhile, we're supposed to bail them out. But for years, I've been pushing for legislation to at least put their checkbook online and put the Detroit Water and Sewers checkbook online, and the Synagro scam, the scandal that happened. I mean, I'm always pushing for more transparency, and I just got awarded a few months ago. The Michigan Press Association created the Sunshine Award and gave it to me as somebody who is really pushing actively to try and get citizens and the press to be able to see more about what government is doing through legislation and through hearings. I remember the ACLU was trying, I don't know if you remember, cell phone data extraction. There was about a year and a half ago that people were concerned, what are they getting when they stop us? Can they download some from our cell phone? ACLU wanted to set a FOIA, said we want to understand more about this machine. The state police said it's going to cost you $500,000. And they came to me and I said, well, I'll haul them before my committee. I chair the oversight. And we hauled the state police before, and lo and behold, the price came way down and they got their information. So it doesn't, it doesn't. So, and then in corporate welfare, I mean, even from the days of Auburn Hills, I mean, Auburn Hills was developing when I was on there for 11 years, and we saw week after week after week tax abatements where this guy was going to get 50% off, but the guy down the road, his competitor, has been there 30 years. He doesn't get that break. It's only the new guy that got the break. And so, I voted against and I'm telling you, there was at least, and for 5 years, I would always ask them, if you don't get this, are you coming anyway? And they all would say yes. Yeah, we're coming anyway. So it just didn't make sense. After a while, they kind of figured, look, he's going to ask you this, you better say that you might not. But it took a while for them to figure that out. And then, another thing, just as far as action goes, the MEDC, when we were in the minority, I couldn't do a whole lot except we just beat up on them every time we saw something. They awarded $9 million tax credit to a guy who was a convicted felon who really didn't have a company. They awarded it to a kind of a bogus company, Rasco. It's the Rasco fiasco. And, I saw that situation and I just jumped on it. I was the one during testimony. I found out about it, kind of blew it up and made sure that everybody knew about it. I mean, I'm looking for opportunities to make sure that you point out the ridiculousness of this centralized planning and what government does when they're trying to pick winners and losers. And then amendment after amendment, I was always putting amendments forward. And then finally, personal freedom. I was the one, after Congressman Amash led the effort, and I know he continues to, on National Defense Authorization Act, the indefinite detention of citizens. So they can take you, and without due process, they can indefinitely detain you. And, he has been the leader on trying to fight that, and it will continue. And I'd love to join him as well. But in Michigan, Virginia was the first state in the nation that said, we're not going to participate in that. You can't use our resources. None of our sheriffs or state police are going to help. I was pushing. We got it out of the House to do the same, and we would have been the second one. It took a while. It got hung up in the Senate. But we finally did. We're the fourth state in the nation, and I really have led that effort to make sure that we will not participate in assisting indefinite detention and taking away our citizens' due process. So it's another thing I'm proud of. Like Congressman Amash said, indigent defense, it's not an issue that people are, a lot of times their old Republican line was, look, we're tough on crime. These guys probably did something wrong anyway. Even if they're not guilty of that, they'll probably throw them in jail anyway. Was kind of, sometimes I think that was our mentality in the past. But if there's one thing that government, and I've been saying this, needs to get right, is when we're about to lock somebody up, that they are in fact guilty. If we're going to take away their liberties, we don't want to be taking people's liberties away without. So yeah, we are going to spend a little bit more money. But what's going on right now? There are parts in this state that a person is going to trial for a 30-year felony, and they're being defended by a kid 6 months out of college who knows nothing about what he's doing. And that person, is often getting advised. 90% of felony cases are indigent. These people have appointed lawyers. And, again, it was something when Justin said, you ought to really look into this. I'm working on it as well. I thought this is not an issue for Republicans to deal with. Mm-hmm. And, but when we talked, this is if we're going to get something right, we need we need to fill potholes. We need to have, really good schools and stuff. But if we're going to lock people away, we need to make sure, A, that they're guilty, and B, that we're not letting the person who really did it go free. So I did lead that, and that was signed in. But there's a lot of others. I don't want to go on too much. When the Dearborn Four, the 4 Christians in Dearborn that were arrested and if you've seen the video, they were merely talking, not much more than what I'm saying right now. and they were not disrupting, and people were coming up to them, and they were just engaging in very friendly conversation. The police charged them and put them in handcuffs and took them away. And I stood by them. I went to their trials. I stood up and said that, this is America. I don't know what you guys are trying to pull in Dearborn. And, they ended up winning. And actually, Dearborn ended up paying about $400,000 for that mistake. So. There's other things, I've been interested in national issues with the whole NSA thing. That our Congressman Amash is the leader on that issue, and I will be glad to go there. I think I can help get those extra 6 votes so that we can stop this mass surveillance and data gathering. But my resolution to prosecute Clapperett's, the first thing I did in Lansing was to put a resolution calling on his prosecution, another one saying that Congress needs to ensure that there's no collection of data without individual warrants. And so, I've been engaged in these issues as well. I've got legislation that's 10th Amendment is pushing on NSA non-assistance by state or subsidiaries of the state. That's my bill as well, and it's in judiciary. I think that's going to get a hearing. And there's so many other things. Right now I'm in the midst of working with the National ACLU on this hailstorm. It's if you read it in the Detroit News, they can act like a cell tower. They can drive around, act like a cell tower, and really, we don't know exactly what it does. We know that it's military style. It's something but they won't tell us what it exactly does. It's extracting data. How do they make sure that who they're extracting it from they have a warrant for it? There's no oversight, and so I'm really delving into that. And you'll watch, and as the weeks unfold, something's going to come out of that. So I guess I just wanted to say that I am very excited about this. I know that I'm going to go to Washington and make a lot of tough votes. And I've made tough votes here in Lansing, and what I do is I come back and talk to my constituents. I've had 64 months I've been there, and I've had 64 district hours. I held monthly. I think maybe we got snowed out once or twice, but I come there and I get Democrats with video cameras trying to cajole me and get me to say stuff. But I like showing up. I feel that I know why I'm voting the way I do, and if I can't go and face the constituents and explain to them why I did what I did, then I don't really deserve to be there. So that is the kind of congressman I'll be, is one who will make the tough votes, understand what I'm voting on, and be able to come back and not hide, but actually push and make it very clear that this is why I did it, and gladly engage in conversation if votes are coming up. I enjoy the conversation from Democrats or liberals, and I certainly, like Justin said, I'm open to rethinking things, especially in civil liberties areas, but I enjoy doing that. So I am deeply honored that you're here. This is going to be a crazy, fun next 14 weeks to get to the primary. If you work hard, I am committed to making sure that we have the resources to win. As far as financially, I'm doing the hard work on raising the money. I really need you out there. My campaign manager, Derek, is foregoing going to, well, he's got other, he's a U of M guy, and he could be elsewhere and doing other things, but he is certainly a Liberty guy who is really excited about working with us. And we're going to be organizing counties, we're going to be organizing townships. We got these scorecards that are a little bit hard-hitting, but they are very honest and very truthful. When we were designing it, I said, make sure you footnote this and you make it very, very clear. We're not doing anything that's wrong, every one of those, but there's a huge distinction between me and my opponent, Mike Bishop. When it comes to corporate welfare, it's immense. When it comes to the MVT, that would not be there if it wasn't for him. When I really went to the mat and was willing to hold a budget hostage, I guess, some would say, but I was willing to make sure that we didn't pass a budget until we defunded Common Core, and we were able to do that. He gave us the Michigan business tax, and and he allowed that tax increase vote. There's a lot of things that are going to be a big distinction between him and I think that it's our job to make sure that everybody knows that. I think if everybody gets informed, it's going to be a very clear vote for Republicans. And so your efforts are critical. I thank those that have helped me get on the ballot. I'm seeing some folks that are here. But if you give me your time and effort, we've got the issues on our side. We've got the grassroots on our side. we're going to have the resources on our side. We're going to go to victory. So join me.